Welcome, everybody, to CXO Exchange Winter Wonderland. My name is Tom Doan. I'm one of the co-founders of CXO Exchange, and we really appreciate everyone coming. The purpose of CXO Exchange is to bring together the thought leaders in the community and to give a space for the future leaders to get to meet them and work together. And so that's kind of our mission. You'll see students today that will be getting scholarships. That's one of our core, principles that we try to follow. But for our first session, I would like to introduce Christy Fossey. She's a highly accomplished executive, recognized leader in the automotive cybersecurity. She's currently serving as a global chief security officer for Marelli. Following her tenure as the executive director for product cybersecurity at Aptiv, and she has she's a distinguished alumni of Kettering University with a dual bachelor's in mechanical engineering. She has worked in the CIA in the operations center, which preceded her return to automotive sector, where she became a pioneer in connected vehicle security. She's known for her expertise in global incident response, vulnerability management, establishing industry best practices, and she is also dedicated to building the next generation of professionals. She also sits on the collegiate board for Kettering and is a CXO Exchange board member and a good friend of mine and just an amazing person. So please, everyone, welcome Christy.
All right. Thank you, Tom. Appreciate that. I don't know why I thought it was a good idea to walk downstairs in front of people. That was very nerve-wracking. But anyway, I am filling in for Afia, who couldn't make it today. So in typical Christy Fossey fashion, I have not prepared hardly anything at all. I really wish Sydney was here to do some charades in the back of the room and walk me through what I'm gonna have to do. If you've been to any of the CXO monthlies, you'll know that's more my moderator style. But I'd like to introduce the first two speakers. They're gonna give a quick chat representing Google Cloud and Profit Security. So I'd like to bring to the stage Ken Sowinski from UWM. He's an IT security leader with 15 years of expertise delivering user-friendly and transparent security solutions. Stephen Monato from UWM has over 10 years of IT experience in health, government, and finance sectors. He's led the UW team for 4 years and was recently promoted to Associate Vice President over Governance, Risk, and Compliance. Congratulations, Steve. And is a recognized GRC thought leader in the Detroit cybersecurity community. Please welcome Steve and Ken.
Good morning. So I wanted to start with a song that meant something, right? So song is Lose Yourself. So in the security profession, you can come into work and just do your job, but security is not one of those things. You have to really lose yourself in the work, right? And as they say, every day matters. And every day you come in, and sometimes some days are more important than other days. And we'll talk a little bit about AI and our journey through AI. And those days where AI was just spinning up were certainly more important than others, as we'll talk about. So I'm Ken Sowinski.
And I'm Steve Monato. I just want to say it's a pleasure to be here. It's actually my first time speaking in front of actually all of my peers, who I've kind of as I look out into the crowd, I see almost 10 years of experience that I've actually learned from all of you. So thank you. And it's my first time being up here. So today what we're going to be covering is just kind of a little bit of our journey, because I know AI is pretty much the new hotness that everyone's been talking about for the past couple of years. And really what we're trying to go for is just kind of what our experiences were, some hiccups that we ran into along the way, as well as things for consideration as well. Hopefully some takeaways for you guys in regards to things to consider in regards to your governance, in regards to your operations, in regards to AI. So I think we have a slide deck somewhere, but oh, there's a clicker on the podium. Aha. And so I'll take it from here. So I wanted to start off real quickly in regards to where it kind of started. So I kind of dating myself a little bit in regards to like where machine learning was. Like I remember in the 90s, I remember reading about this, seeing it on the news in regards to like IBM's Deep Blue, and that's all like machine learning and all this stuff, and it beat like a world chess champion from Russia, and I'm like, that's kind of cool. We were just talking about dogs and animals at home. I remember the Sony Aibo, and I thought it was like, oh, cool, maybe my mom can actually let me have a dog that doesn't shed or anything like that. I'm like, oh, that's be cool. I remember Honda's Osimo. I was like, that's kind of cool. I know there's a few in the auto industry here, and that was kind of cool when I saw that walk out on stage. I was like, cool. And now you have, Boston Dynamics robots that are jumping off of like three-story scaffoldings and landing just fine. And you have like some of our stuff in regards to like machine learning that we started to do more recently this year as a company in regards to just kind of automating a lot of a little bit of decision making with adding some more human in the loop pieces. But I think going into the next thing, then something happened in the industry. Then it became the buzzword, as we all know. It was no different than Bitcoin, and then it transitions into like 2023, and I'll hand it off to Ken from here.
Yeah, so a few years back, we've worked with machine learning and automation to automate part of the loan process at UWM, and that's where we built something called Bolt. And part of that was, of course, AI built into it, but wasn't quite the AI we know today. And then, again, here comes 2023, the big boom, every day going home, hearing on the news, 3.5, this new thing that's going to change the world. It's like, all right, so our thing as security professionals is, what do we do? How do we protect us? What's the risk, of course, with everything? So, but then at the same time, we've got people across the floor trying to use it for everything and anything. And our thing was, initially block it, right? So we didn't want to become Samsung that leaked chip information out to the world. So initially we had to block it, but we had everybody in the business needing it, wanting it. So we came up with Chat UWM. So we spun up our own AI team and spun up our own instance called Chat UWM. Behind that, we've got multiple different models depending on the purpose. So that's the great thing about having our own AI team. We can control the message. We can ensure that people are getting what they should. So, but then from there.
But that's where the problem is that the business would continue, and I know many of you have experienced this, they're going to continue to ask to use it. You're going to get the new things that show up on their social media feeds, and you're going to have that executives like, hey, I saw this thing on the internet. I want to use this today. And so that development, those requests, all of those things continue to kind of outpace, I guess, a lot of the laws and regulations. If you paid attention to the AI regulation front, I know our current administration suspended any new regulations regarding the AI. So what does that mean for you as an organization? What did that mean for us? Well, we had to get in front of it really quickly. Similar to the defense in-depth model that you think about in regards to security, we did the similar thing in regards to AI, just changing your mindset. So you had your higher levels of like executive committees in regards to making sure that they're informed. So that was where your governance kind of committee comes into play. I'm going to give you, again, that GRC perspective. So that executive committee, so that way they're informed, they're kind of giving us the ideas of like, hey, this is where your organization wants to go with AI. These are some discussion points we can have. Things to consider, you have your IT leaders, you have your business leaders as well in there. The second level of depth that we started to add was a council. So this is your kind of like your boots on the ground, or middle level leaders who can kind of help make decisions that is on behalf of the committee. So they can make some actionable decisions for your for your people on the floor. Now the difficult part is the third one, standards. If you know anything about AI right now, the environment kind of has a few different ways of going about developing and whatnot. You have NIST has their own AI framework, they have their risk framework, you have a lot of different standards and whatnot. So you have to figure out what is applicable to you. There's also quite a few different regulations out there. I know some of the states right now, I think one of the big ones is Colorado, and I know there's some new privacy AI laws that have recently come out for like Rhode Island. So things to consider. But those are those boots on the ground. So that standards council is like, if you are a software development shop, what are those developers doing and how do you keep them in the guardrails so that way it doesn't cause any issues later on from a larger organizational perspective. Last thing you want is be on an audit and have something out of sync. Next slide. So from the governance perspective, oh good, they updated my slide. Yeah. Anybody who's been in this situation, yes, you have to govern AI. How do you govern something that you have a lot of shadow sometimes, shadow AI. We have shadow IT, you have shadow AI, it's all the same thing. All right, so what do you have to do? Some of the things that we started taking on, we took it on early. These things were kind of just waiting and ready to be published. So policies, procedures, my team took a lot of development of those things. You know, and anybody who's here, anybody who has a C-suite title, you know that in an audit, that documentation comes in handy, right? Really, those policies, that documentation really comes in handy. So it started sets the top level down. Some other considerations, TPRM, so third-party risk management, that does fall under me. Some of the things, I know many of us use different vendors, Copilot, Zoom has its own AI thing. Some things you want to consider regarding your vendors, like, are you asking your vendors what their AI is doing? Are you double checking what the data is in there that they're using? Are they using it for training on your own data? Are they, oh, it just left me. But really just asking questions. What is their consideration of AI? Is it machine learning? Is it generative? Is it agentic? Kind of understanding those definitions of what that AI is that they're using and that they're defining in their solution. We also took a step. We developed our own custom AI framework to kind of measure ourselves against a maturity model. That's something it's going to be unique to your organizations completely. We took a good snapshot. We also looked at the regulations in regards to what's actually out there, figuring out what actually is applicable and how can we hold those things available to our developers again. Then we finished the baseline assessment. That's starting to finish up this year. So we're going to have like about 13 of them, I believe, done with this year for different teams in our organization, which is great. But at the same time, you also want to double check, excuse me, you also want to have different business partners. I couldn't do it without having my friends in internal audit, your legal teams, your government affair teams, if you have them. Don't be afraid of internal audit. They're probably going to be your biggest allies at the end of the day to get some of this stuff done. And that'll help with your IT development floor, if you do have one, or any of the other teams that do support your AI initiatives. Moving into that, I know some of our initiatives that we've started to do, I'll hand this off to Ken, back to Ken on the next slide, and where we're kind of going with AI.
Yeah, so I think we've seen across the market the use of AI, and I put a little blurb at the bottom there, is rapidly increasing. And the latest, greatest thing is, of course, agentic AI. So some of the use cases, of course, marketing teams, day-to-day business function, creating job descriptions is phenomenal that I found. Threat and vulnerability teams for enrichment. SOC teams is a great example, great use case for agentic AI. You know, in the past, you know, anything you could do with machine learning, AI is great at. It's not always great at math and things like that, but it's certainly specific use cases it's really good at. And these are just some of the things that we found useful. And Monato?
Yeah, and one of the other things that we found was a business accelerator, and this is where having your legal teams lined up together in regards to developing tools is one of the things is most intelligent agents. So we developed Mia as a tool for our team across the floor. So similar to, I'm not going to say it because I might trigger some of your phones, but similar to what your Google or your Siri will do, and will make a phone call for you when you ask it to schedule an appointment or something like that. This is an accelerator for us in the sense it'll make phone calls for us, for our clients at the end of the day. It can notify, let's say, Ken qualifies to save like $300 or $400 on a mortgage. I know many of us probably already have a mortgage in here. It'll notify and it'll schedule the appointment for us. And it can answer some of the few questions. Now, keep in mind, we did narrow it down to what it can't answer because there's a lot of legality, and I won't go into that. But in regards to questions that you might have, and get at least an appointment scheduled for our clients to save them some money. Really, at the end of the day, that's a small, medium business piece that we love promoting. So there's some more information on that link at the bottom, but I won't go into it. So, and then it goes into more of our operations side, which is more of the Ken.
Right. big use case there for sure, though. Accelerating business. As soon as rates drop, it reaches out, lets people know if they're eligible, if it makes sense for them. So we'll get back into the SOC use case that we talked a couple of slides ago. You know, in the SOC, there's never enough time. If you're lucky, you're getting to the high and critical alerts. Lack of information in the alerts, and definitely abnormalities. That's tough, right? You're never going to be able to look at all logs everywhere. So AI is good at that, digging in, looking through logs, defining what is normal, and then finding things that are abnormal. So what we've done is we partnered, as we have with some of the AI, with Bolt and other functions, features that we've deployed. We partner with Google and with the traditional SIM and SOAR to start. But as we transitioned away from another SIM, you know, AI was key in not having to learn a new language. So we were able to write rules without learning that new language and be able to get it spun up very quickly. Of course, layering in AI saves time, increases impact, allows us to see what's going on with all of our alerts from all the different sources that come in. And here's an example of that. So some of the enrichment, some suggestions of what it's seeing, what we should do. But again, as I said, recognizing the abnormalities, working alerts, and providing context on, you know, the big thing is if you're looking at any AI, especially agentic, you know, if it's going to do things for you, the key thing is it should tell you why it did those actions. So you're not wondering, it's just doing these things and we don't know what's happening. So context is very important there. So keep that in mind as you're talking to different vendors. And another great one out there is Profit. And Profit absolutely does that. So they take a different approach. So they're not traditional. They're starting with AI. So you don't need a SIM, you don't need a SOAR. It can tie into that, but it can also tie directly into all your endpoints, your firewalls, your endpoint security, and so on. And so you're not having to pay for all that storage. So two different approaches there, depends what works for you. But their big thing is certainly giving you the context and how it makes the decisions and why. And again, like it says up there, you know, it's like works like your best SOC analyst. Doesn't take breaks, of course, and it honestly can help train your team. If you're bringing in junior analyst, it's going to look through, hey, this decision was made, and you can see why, and your analyst can learn from that. So here's another screen. But like we said, triage, no training needed, no playbooks needed. It comes ready with the playbooks already, pre-built. If you have, for instance, Palo firewalls, it already has actions for that. So that's the great thing about that. Again, email filtering, phishing, and certainly it learns. Like if it's making decisions, you don't like how it's doing that, you can give it feedback and it'll learn what you want, how you want it. So big positives there. And again, some of the benefits of AI, you know, we're going against, especially on I think the big thing for me is the phishing campaigns are coming in, and instead of being cryptic English, they're coming in pretty clear now because the foreign adversaries are using AI to write the emails now. So for us to combat that with AI only makes sense. So that's a big thing there. Like we talked about a few times, hidden threats. It can look for things. It can look for abnormalities. It can learn and train itself to look for things that we wouldn't know to look for. And of course, elevating our junior analyst. So I think that's what we have.
I think that's all we have, yeah.
Yeah.
I think
Sure.
we're going into the next segment.
Yeah. Hey.
You can hear me, right?
Yep.
Yep.
For the use cases, what are you guys looking at in terms of what's the order of importance for the use cases? How do you determine which are the next on the roadmap?
So we partner with the vendors, of course, and work with them. But I think the biggest thing is, what takes the analyst most time, right? Even with traditional SIM and SOAR, when we're doing that in the SOC, it's all right, what's the noise? So it's cut down the noise. And if you're eliminating good data, that's not always great, right? And with AI, you can take a different approach with that. But I think the biggest noise or the biggest bang for the buck would be where I always focus first. And just like we would tune traditionally, that's where, all right, you tune, and you're still getting all these alerts. All right, how can we point AI at that and work through that? So I hopefully that answers the question.
Yeah, so as a follow-up, so the org chart, on the organizational line, I think you had like marketing, you had some other.
Yeah.
To know, and you guys, and Steve talked about having different business partners. Are you guys looking at, what are those components, security, efficiency? How do those all get prioritized across the board, not just?
Yeah, I think the easy answer on that is money, right? So what's going to make us the most money, save us the most money, and maybe not cut people, but create efficiencies with people. If we can, for us, it's loans, right? So in the business, if we can process double the loans or 20% more, that's where we would focus first and have, as you've seen on a few of the slides. You got anything else?
Honestly, it comes down to that leadership component that I mentioned. So that those layers of depth. So it's like there may be something from your development floor. They're like, hey, we found some new thing in regards to like our bit bucking component or whatever you want to talk about. It's like we want to use this as our development tool. I'm like, well, hold on, like, does that conflict with anything else that you're currently doing in your business? So that's really comes down to where those layers come into play. Obviously, the committee is designed to set that overall strategy for the company, and we know deep down, at the end of the day, it's like as IT professionals, we end up being on the second hand on the side because the business is always going to tell you what they want, and you're going to have to figure out how to deliver it. So that's the end of the day what we have to figure out and have those people in place to figure out, kind of help make those decisions.
And I think traditionally, even with machine learning, like something like UiPath, right? I can't hire any more people. Okay, I can buy a product. I can get it implemented, get a few cycles on it. If we start creating efficiencies there, now I got maybe a full FTE working on that. Now I can free up another one. As I start freeing up, now I can invest more in the automation, whether it's traditional machine learning or AI. I mean, and that's just like team level. But absolutely, somebody asked the same question to the CTO, and his answer was, where's the money? Where do we save the most money? So that exact question.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
I've got one. What's been the experience, if any, or what your plans are for using AI in delivering customer support? And if you have, I'm curious to know what the response or what the feedback has been from your clients.
Yeah, I think that's a fine line between, risk or compliance, right? Compliance rules, regulations. What do people think of it, right? If they call in and they're talking to a bot, they don't always love that. So it's really got to be something that is likable. And for us, customer service comes first. So that's been the struggle, is provide something out there that's not annoying, or something when they do call in that they'll put up with. And maybe get some answer quicker. So it's always about efficiencies. If you're calling in and you got maybe a junior person answering the phone, but you've got a bot that can answer questions quicker, that's going to go a long ways. And maybe they'll put up with it. And they're okay with that it's a bot because it's giving them the answer they want. As long as you're getting them the answer they want, they're going to be happy. But if they're going in circles and they're not getting anywhere, they're going through a phone tree and they're not getting answers, then of course they're not going to be happy. So it's been a balance between all three of those, I guess.
Yeah, and I mentioned it regarding the one tool, that Mia, that makes automated calls. The feedback that we've gotten so far has been good, but it doesn't mean it's not filled with, it didn't have its own path of like hiccups and road bumps along the way, because there was other regulations that we were also looking at to figure out, like, are we allowed to do this? There's different privacy things that are coming into play, and so this is where the overlap. You can't have privacy without security at the end of the day. In understanding, like, am I allowed to do this because certain laws require that I either need to announce before I engage with a robot. So, hi Carla, this is a robot. Would you like to speak to me? that's really not a good customer experience. Of course, I'm going to say no. So there's a lot of things that you have to navigate, and that's another layer and component that you have to think about. There's certain things you kind of figure out along the way, but that's why you have those friends in the other departments like legal and compliance to help it figure out for you. Plus, I'm not a lawyer, so it helps to have your legal friends on the side to help you.
Well, and changing regulations too, right?
They're
AI
always
came out
changing.
a couple of years ago, and it's changing. It's catching up, and we're having to adopt as it changes. So.
All right, I think we have time for one more question, if we have one. Anyone? Oh, there we go. Marie?
Yeah, I've got a question. When you're looking at your LLM models and when you're doing, traditional testing, you can roll back your data. But the LLMs have a little bit uniqueness because as that code is changing and because of the nature of it continuing to morph, what specific things have you found have been helpful to ensure that your models remain clean and that your, AI agent isn't calling somebody that, oh, by the way, nothing worse than get a call that says, oh, you qualify for a lower rate, except you really don't, in the dissatisfaction. But that's the technical challenge that I've been looking at right now.
No, so that's actually a really good question. So I mentioned it, I briefly mentioned it with like third parties, but this is also something to do internally, is having something called, and you probably know it, like your model card. Defining that early, because we know that your development teams are going to start kind of deviating as they develop different things and tools and whatnot. Having that model card clearly defined of like, hey, what is this supposed to do? What is the risk that it might deviate? But then also once you have that defined, adding that piece of like QA, of like constantly testing. We do have teams on our side that like constantly test and like, hey, is this still doing what it's supposed to be doing? And my team is gonna be the auditors of that side. I'm like, hey, show me your test results at the end of the day to make sure it didn't deviate. Now, that model may deviate as well because like, oh, the business may say like, no, we wanted to do this thing now. I'm like, well, great, now I have to redraft the new model card. That's fine, it's an administrative headache, but it is one of those things that like, at the end of the day, you wanna know exactly what is this supposed to be doing, because if it's not defined early, you're gonna have like that, it's gonna just start spreading and deviating and going all different ways. So having those testing cycles built into that process is gonna be really key and important later on.
All right, everyone, let's give these guys a big round of applause. Thank you guys very much. It was awesome.
Thank you, Tom. Appreciate it. Thanks, guys. Great presentation. All right, for our next speaker, we're going to bring out Jonathan Gough, who's representing Pellera today. He's a PhD and a senior director for AI ML and chief scientist at Pellera. That's pretty intimidating. So Jonathan's work spans generative AI, data platforms, and modern app architectures. He's built and led cross-functional strike teams, and he hosts Edge of IT, a podcast exploring how AI and technology are reshaping business and society. Welcome, Jonathan.
How you doing, everybody? Great to be here today. My name is Jonathan Gough. As mentioned, I'm the chief scientist at Pellera. Today, talking about AI. So AI is moving extremely fast. I mean, it's like nothing we've ever seen before. It's only been 3 years, so happy birthday to ChatGPT. November 30th of 2022, it was released. We were seeing models 2 years ago. We saw models being released every 6 months. Last year, every 3 months. Now models are being pushed out almost every month. We're seeing new features coming out weekly, new applications, new use cases. Things are crazy. There's, I like to think of it, there's 6 different ways that these are the dimensions that AI can accelerate the way it's used in business. And as I was thinking about this morning, in many ways, the reason why it's going forward, these are also the reasons why AI is moving so fast. It's changing the way that we interact with other people and the way we work. I mean, fundamentally, it allows us to collaborate better, collaborate with data, collaborate with each other, allows us to process information, have higher throughput, and think deeper about problems because it's easier to get to information, it's easier to get access. Orchestration, interacting with multiple things allows us to have a different level of intelligence. And it has lots of different modalities. It understands speech, images, different file types. And it can do work on its own on your behalf. And organizations are getting value out of this. These are just some examples from the Midwest. For example, Mayo Clinic or Ford, State Farm, all have implemented this technology and seen great benefits. And these are just a few of many stories that are out there. But when we think about these dimensions of acceleration, if you're a CISO, you're probably also sitting there saying that these are the 6 dimensions of vulnerability that you've got to tackle. Collaboration is great, except if somebody's not supposed to have access to something. Throughput is great, unless you don't have proper governance in place. If the orchestration is orchestrating information that doesn't have proper policies in place, there's lots of vulnerabilities out there that you didn't necessarily have to worry about. And the acceleration of this is so fast that it's difficult to wrap your mind and your head around it. And there's lots of the stories where things have gone wrong, and a lot of gotchas. There's this paradox where everybody is adopting it and they're investing in it, but at the same time, people are also saying that they're having a hard time realizing the value from it. That is true, but also, I like to say that 100% of organizations are also struggling to keep their systems secure because this is changing so fast. Things move, things change, vulnerabilities increase all the time. So there is this chasm where people have started out with prototypes and they've done POCs and they're trying to push them to production and they get hung up. And that's where some of these challenges come up, right? Performance, scale, costs, security and governance, and just the skills to actually do this. Getting that meaningful value is difficult. So I thought I would share a couple thoughts on how we're seeing organizations and how our team is helping organizations do this well. So these 5 keys for successful adoption, acceleration. When you start expanding and doing AI, you need to have a purpose. You need to have the right principles in place. You have to have the power, the compute behind it. And you also need to have and establish a process. But all of that is for naught if you don't have people and partners invested in this. AI is math, AI is computation, but it doesn't take people out of the equation. In fact, my postulate is that it makes people more people than less people. I don't know if that actually makes sense, but it allows people to do more, right? And so they are very important. So purpose, you've got to have a goal. My joke is that AI is technology to either save money or make money, otherwise it's a waste of money. And so defining what is this going to be focused on, how are you measuring it, and what are the outcomes are absolutely critical. Science experiments are fun, I'm a scientist, but that doesn't bring business value. So when an AI project is in the ideation phase or in a POC phase, it needs to have, what are the KPIs we're driving towards? And therefore, what's the foundation underneath that? And that helps us understand what we need to have our arms around and what we don't. You need to have, once you do know what you need to have your arms around, right? That's where sovereignty, security, and governance comes in. Once you've defined that use case, you then can begin to put the proper controls in place. That being said, the technology is changing, the needs are changing, and so it's key that you are iterating continually to make sure that security and governance is aligned with the business users and the business use case to keep everybody in the right place. Power. GPUs are great. GPUs are a lot of fun to fool around with, but they're also expensive and oftentimes hard to get. And so identifying what you need to support the business use case and making sure that it's aligned to your KPIs, you don't want to be wasting money. Building out solutions and implementing solutions need to have a goal and a direction and be measured. Measure that you're getting some value out of it and not breaking the bank. It's great to build a $3 million widget, but if it's only for one person, right, you're going to end up upside down on it. And having a process, building security, building a framework around the process of iterating, and building so that you are constantly ready for change. Building, the only thing that isn't changing is that everything is continuing to change. So building these things as Lego bricks so that as a new model comes out, as new observability frameworks, new vulnerabilities come out, things can be adapted, things can be changed that will allow you then to scale up, scale back down, make things affordable, and also secure. And of course, people and partnerships. Having people invested in the technology, having people with their eyes open, thinking about where there might be vulnerabilities, thinking about other ways to use this is important. Socialization of how people are using this is probably one of the least spoken about force multipliers for implementing these types of projects. Word of mouth. So powerful. Creating an experience that people want to use, and it's intuitive for them to use, is absolutely crucial. And creating trust. If people don't trust it, nobody's going to use it. And so having people involved at the outset is core. So what does this mean? In my mind, there's 4 different ways that we need to change our mindset in order to change so that we can shift and scale this technology as we go forward. We're 3 years into this crazy AI revolution. Things are only going up. Things are only increasing. And so scaling this is going to be a challenge. You need to be thinking about this as a system, not a tool. It's not about picking which model or which vendor for something. This technology is going to be embedded. It's going to be embedded in every single thing that you get, right? There's going to be lots of different touch points. So as you are evaluating a product, you need to think about how is this going to integrate into my system as opposed to is this the right tool in this specific space? Did this fall into the right Gartner quadrant or Forrester wave or whatever? Those are important things to consider, but how does it fit into your system? How are you building a system that's going to continue to scale? Anybody can be the spark for innovation. It's not just directed towards one person or 2 people in an organization. Ideas are coming from lots of different people, and that's why there are 100 different, thousands of different startups based around AI, because there's so much that this technology can do. And so it's important as you're considering the use case, as you're considering who has access, who needs access, that anybody could be the person that sparks the next big thing at your organization. Velocity. Someone looked at, over the last 6 months, how often a new release had a certain level of attention in the media. And they measured that it was about something new, something interesting that got traction was coming out roughly every 72 hours. That's just absolutely bonkers, right? So much is happening. Things are changing every day. Organizations have to be ready and be able to adapt to that. sitting around and trying to having a committee make a decision about something and it taking 3 to 6 months, an organization is going to get left behind. And because someone else is going to step in and take their place. And so coming up with a framework on implementing technology and evaluating technology and securing technology has got to be an iterative process. And having people's buy-in is key to that. But we need to keep moving forward with speed, but done carefully and securely. And when people look and think about a return on their investment, this isn't necessarily about how much time you've saved, how many FTEs can we lose. Elon Musk is talking about how AI is going to replace all our jobs. They said the internal combustion engine was going to do that. They said the computer was going to do that. It didn't take work away. It just changed work. We found new work to do, new value to create. We're going to continue to do that. And so ROI is not just how many people can I get rid of. It's going to be something that compounds over time. It's going to be, there are going to be some tangible aspects to it, but there's also going to be some intangible things as well. So that's my presentation. My organization is Pellera. Just a 20-second commercial on who we are in case you didn't know. We help across the entire stack. We not only have skills in cybersecurity, but we also are able to implement people's compute. We have skills across AI, data, analytics, the full life cycle of what AI touches. So we can help with providing advice on that. We can help with implementation and managed services. So thank you for listening. Appreciate it.
Okay, great. Thank you, Jonathan. I think we're going to do a last Q&A session with all the panelists at the very end. So we have one more speaker that we're going to bring out. Eric Olmstead, representing Palo Alto, is a seasoned technology executive with over 25 years of experience in innovation, architecture, sales, and strategic planning. He's a recognized trusted advisor with deep expertise in business development, operational efficiency, and applying technology to solve complex challenges. He holds multiple industry certifications and previously is a named account executive at Palo Alto Networks. Please welcome Eric.
Hey, good morning, everybody. I think the theme of a cyber winter wonderland, is perfect as we enter the most challenging season in cybersecurity right now. Really, yeah, I'm good at that. Here we go. We don't have our slides up. Who's doing the slides? Okay. Hey, there we go. Well, as they said in the introduction, Eric Olmstead, I'm with Palo Alto Networks. So as most of the people speaking today have, more kind of on-premise or on-hands knowledge, I come from a sales aspect. If you guys know me from working with me in my LinkedIn profile, I've been in this industry, like she said, for 25 years. And prior knowledge, I've worked with Accenture, Microsoft, and came from a consulting background. So I've got a very heavy networking background that, provides some type of applicability to this context. Obviously, Palo, trying to keep this vendor neutral. We are very heavy in this space. Are we? Okay. Yeah. We don't have slides, so let me look here. Let me grab my info. I can talk to the slides. one of the things with AI, when, as I'm talking to you guys today, one of the things that we're going to bring up is, my job is to really outline the new reality of how we're building our defenses to ensure you can deploy safely and bravely in the AI world. I mean, one of the things, that we're, really looking at is protecting AI with AI. How are we adversarially, we have, just beyond the attacks of our normal prompt injection, or general LLMs that everybody's using, ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, that prompt injection, even with your agentic AIs of what everybody's using in that realm. Another thing is data poisoning. How are you protecting against that data poisoning? So you do build your LLM models. Now, how are attackers using those models, especially agentic models, and what you have out there to, now data can now be the poisoning aspect within that realm. And we can go further into that as well. But how do we secure ourselves? One of those things is fighting AI with AI. I can talk from my perspective at Palo is we've been using AI for a multitude of years since our firewalls and our cloud security services have been applied to that aspect, and we've really built upon that. Now, how do we really secure that? One of those things we look at is 3 different pillars. From an aspect of, we've made investments in buying other companies. I'm trying to be vendor agnostic in my speech here, but one of the things we do in that first pillar is you need to have an autonomous SOC. Like, you need something that can take all the data at the velocity of what we're getting attacked at and be able to remediate and tie in that data. So we look at it from a platform aspect. If you take a bunch of individual tools, that data is now siloed, and what type of velocity can you tie in all those attacks? So, you get alert fatigue, fragmented noise, SIMs. Typically, we developed we've got slides. Okay. I'll take a step back a little bit, and we'll go through the slides kind of quick, just so there's some context to some of my ramblings that provided, some entertainment. But as we said, we're at an inflection point with AI. AI is coming at us very fast. Average attacks with cyber per week. We have, 800 million zero-day events observed. This is 24 data. So when you're looking at AI, that velocity of what we can do from an attack perspective is, it's almost inconceivable how fast you can utilize AI. You don't even need deep technical knowledge anymore, and the tools are readily available. So a nice thing to do, I didn't put on this slide, is you can go out, and I think it's on YouTube, and Google our Unit 42 demonstration that we did for AI attack. When we took a big normal cyber attack that took 24 to 25 hours, we built an AI model and can do that same attack within 20, 30 minutes. What's nice about that is it never goes to sleep. It can go and completely reiterate that attack and learn in the process. So what used to take days is now taking minutes. So if you look at from that attack surface, we're just getting more and more, vulnerable. Deception at scale. When you look at our AI landscape, one of the big things, deep fakes. I could talk about deep fakes for hours because it scares the heck out of me. And it really becomes, what's the new tool, Nano Banana, that just come out, and you can take and create images within minutes and take data into that. But also from a deepfake perspective, we did internal testing, spent $1.35 in tools, and took our CISO of Unit 42's voice and remapped it. So you could generate a call to anybody internally and talk as her and request, oh, I left my laptop at home. I just got a publicly used one. I need you to reset my password. At what possibility can people do that? So everything now is trust and verify. Trust and verify with AI. And we kind of covered this, the new attack surface, prompt injection, data poisoning, that strategic shift. And we go into fighting AI with AI. We talk autonomous security operations. This is where you get into that next-gen SIM conversation. I don't even call it a SIM. I call it next-gen SOC automation. So we can take that autonomous SOC and manage that triaging those events with orchestration. And in that process, not as it's doing orchestration, it's learning and developing, with user behavior analytics and how your environment's supposed to operate. Now, securing the AI lifecycle, we look at this from a pre-deployment standpoint. You need to do, in your development phase, model scanning. That model scanning and posture management, identifying vulnerabilities and compliance gaps before it hits your production. Because when people are developing your internal AI components, or even public ones, you're using vendor-based tools, because developers nowadays, developers aren't writing anything from scratch. They're going out to Huggy Face, downloading code. We need to make sure that code does not have hidden vulnerabilities and components within that. So you need to be looking at that, having the guardrails. Also, from a deployment standpoint, we actually have a tool that does all this stuff, but not laying that out, but deployment, AI red teaming. So this is using AI to fight AI. When you're looking at deploying those components, learning, taking those models, doing red teaming against your environment to make sure, as that AI is forming and moving, that you're looking and consistently scanning for vulnerabilities, so you get real-time analysis of something's changed. And then runtime, that real-time defense against prompt injections, data leakage. Now, our third pillar, stop shadow AI. The biggest thing is visibility. Take a tool that can look, across multitude of Gen AI apps. So not just your large LLM models, but know what your users are going to do, because they're going to be using some type of tool. Either they're going to screenshot, they're going to pull data, copy, paste from their computer, however you control it, but allow them to be able to use the tool, but put guardrails on it and be able to have that visibility of how they are using it. Because the people, anytime you restrict them, they're going to find a way around it. It's make them entitled to use the tools and become efficient with them. And the controls, sanction, tolerate, blocked apps based on risks. So be able to identify, these are the tools we want to use throughout. And then, obviously the data protection component, because as they are pulling data out of ChatGPT or Gemini, Claude, any of those tools, you don't want them uploading sensitive data, copying and pasting, or being able to bring it out. So you got to control that environment. And the biggest one, I think, is real-time coaching. Basically educating your users and making them control how and be aware of, suspicious activity, especially in the deepfake models. Now, the future is crazy when you look at it. You can't have an AI strategy without AI integrated security. It's a straight message, and it is pretty much a staple of what I tell my customers. You can put AI out there and how your users are going to use it, but at what risk? You got to value that risk, kind of as the prior speaker said, where comes your business reputation and where does, that currency impact you from a business operational standpoint. Now, hopefully some of that information you can use and move ahead and deploy bravely. That is me. Thank you. Okay.
Okay, my notes say to bring all the three presentations back out for a Q&A session. So, yep, you guys are still hanging out back there. That's good.
I'm gonna
We
grab
have
my
about
water.
20 minutes or so for
didn't have
some
my-
questions. I think there was a mic walking around in the back of the room. Does anyone have any questions for our 4 panelists?
Hey, I'll just say, Eric, that was tough, man.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
It's like Mission Impossible.
Okay, I will be a mic runner. Here you go.
Thank you.
I mean, the right music.
So I have a question for, I think, maybe all of you. How do you think about, I heard the word Lego, I heard the word framework, and I thought, well, what are you doing to build maybe something that can be used for development in the area of identity? How does identity get handled with workloads and various and sundry? What guardrails have you put in place? What have you told developers? Built anything that they can all tap into? Yada, yada.
I feel like you yada yada over the best part, but no, I'm kidding. I mean, so we have an entire practice around IAM and identity management, and so that's, we bring them in. I'm not the expert on that, but it's something that's critical to making sure it's done properly, especially when you're integrating between multiple different data sources, providing access to different things. But if you're talking about knowing that this is this is Jonathan and not an AI bot of Jonathan, that's a harder question.
Yeah, that's the validity and making sure its identity is going to be one of the control planes. Now that you're bringing AI and you're bringing data, speed now is the new currency. So at that point, you're going to have multiple validations within there. Identity is going to be one of those, yeah.
And I think there's a few things that we've seen. So we've got products that have AI built into it, of course, for identity. So that's helped us in some cases improve the speed of cleaning things up, like Active Directory groups, based on use case, based on what's already there. But, it's something seen recently very interesting, right? So we send emails. We bring an AI to help us send the emails, like Eric said. Is that me or is it AI sending the email? So you don't know. So that's certainly something from even a security perspective that we have to be cautious on, and certainly compliance too.
Yeah, I think for my perspective is your controls that you currently have in place don't change. You should still have your same gates and checks that you should be going through anyway, but it's just, you have to get creative because that AI, whatever you're putting that layer in between for your AI agent, agentic, Lego, whatever, you have to put that gate somewhere in between there as well. So you get creative with your architecture. This is where the fun part of IT comes into play, because you get to create cool stuff and figure out where it goes. So.
Yep. Question for Jonathan. On your velocity slide, so you said you can't, from a governance standpoint, you can't take 6 months, but you do need governance. Obviously, governance is important. So there comes that. Where's the importance of speed? Where's the importance of governance? If it's changing every 72 hours, do you have to redecide what's good every 72 hours, or what do you think is the right time frame?
I think in many ways, you start with governance. When you've defined a use case, you start thinking about, well, what are we going to need for this? And starting to assess, do we have governance in place for the data? Who are the users that are going to use this product, this product of some sort? Where does governance sit? Governance needs to be, and as things evolve and change over the course of the life cycle, before you've decided on what you're building, through what you've built, and through implementing it, governance is a part of that entire arc, right? It's not something that you stop at the beginning or you stop doing once it's rolled out. Everything just keeps changing, right? I mean, we had a client who asked, we want to, talking about identity and access management. Let's use MCP to just integrate with this. Well, they Googled it, and sure, MCP has got, it's secure, OAuth 2.1. Well, yeah, but also no, it's not, right? So, it's hard. You've got to balance. You need to be thinking about governance ahead of time and as things keep moving forward.
So as you're democratizing the whole Gen AI, because that's really what we're talking about is, pushing everything to everybody, from that perspective. And you have a remote workforce and you have, a lot of third party. What unique challenges do you have and some ideas on insider threat? Because it's really multiplied kind of the threat surface that you have because of the different parts that now can be integrated or impacted by individuals versus the traditional hierarchy of code pushed by developers and in much more of a controlled sequence.
I say you go ahead. We've got protection around that component with the utilization of some of our tools. We do it from a browser perspective. I mean, a lot of times now everybody's working within SaaS apps, so we can control from a data loss protection standpoint. We can put a lot of those controls around the browser, so people, taking a lot of that data can only cut and paste, watermark, its components. You can only control so much. But that DLP process becomes a key place, and then, like you said, for developer processes is really scanning and validating that code at runtime.
I think the threat landscape has changed completely. Never before has data been a threat, right? The data that you ingest can unintentionally be malicious. I mean, who thought that a PDF was going to be a problem? Who thought a text document was going to be a problem? There's code issues, there's, SQL injection gets close, but this is just a new game. You've got to be looking at, we were talking about this earlier, what is coming in, what is going out, and what happens while it's inside. It's a lot.
I'll add some 2 cents to that. So one of the things that I think about is, as IT professionals, we're often outnumbered by our number of users in our business. So the human side of it is, yes, you're going to democratize and get them access to these things, but it's the education component that we often forget because we focus heavily, we invest so much into the tools, but we forget that it only takes one person to do something dumb, unfortunately. But we have to continue, how do we communicate this? How do we make them more informed? So that way, at least if they're touching our data, they're moving it into these AI models or whatnot, they at least know, hey, I've at least been educated, I've been spoken to about it. There's other components to that. And when you start engaging the floor, your IT floor, your development teams and whatnot, in that kind of sense, they'll pull you in. They'll be like, hey, can I borrow you for a second? Because I have a question around governance that I think it's your role to help kind of guide me. I'm like, it is. I will help guide you and figure out how unique this scenario is, or if it's just a standard play that we run. So I think having that communication channel, not only on top of the controls, but figuring out ways to talk about it and help them understand what those risks are is another way to help approach it. So that way, reducing the impact and the likelihood of it. So
I think at the end of the day, the controls don't change. They might expand a bit, right? With more protections. Of course, data is more dangerous than ever for getting leaked or being used maliciously. But for me, I don't think about it much differently. Our initial block, as I talked about, was a firewall block, right? That's how we did it initially to protect ourselves, and then we grew and expanded and gave the people what they wanted. But at the end of the day, a lot of the controls that we were using 5 years ago are still the same as they are today. They've gotten better and they've expanded for sure, but they still at the core have the same controls. DLP, DSPM for data labeling, that's a big thing for sure. It goes back to how important the data is.
Morning. First of all, I just want to say thanks to all the speakers. You've done a great job. You touched on 2 areas that really resonate with me. One is the challenge of data protection around data modeling. So in traditional, AppSec dev environments, we can use synthetic data in the lower environments. Developers can work with that, and the data scientists, or whoever might be involved in building the data models can use synthetic data for those applications. But in the AI world, we often have to bring the real data into lower environments so that they can do model against active live data, right? So the models can be learned off actual data. So that brings the challenge of data security for that. Whenever we take production data and put it in lower environments, we need the same security controls that we have in production environments in those lower ones. So that's one challenge that we've seen in the AI world. It's a little bit different than typical application security development. And then the second part of that question is then brings in the identity piece to that, right? Those data scientists may need access to all the data, but people that they're starting to then do the use case development with it don't necessarily, because they're looking at real data and they might not have a need to know, right? Or the privileges to look at data, like if we were to take sales data, for example. National sales data is one thing, regional sales data another, and then territorial sales data, right? And within a state or for a group of business units. So how are you looking at implementing identity protection in those lower environments and then modeling that all the way up into production?
So I'll say, for me, that the big thing is to ensure it's an internal model, right? And make sure that the data is labeled correctly, so proper identity controls are in place for each type of data, each level of data. So I think that's what I would add to it.
I think as a data scientist, as scientists in general, we've always thought of data in dev as being, the security controls around it migrating from dev through prod, that it's all the controls are the same.
I have a thought, but I'm trying to word it correctly. It's going to be a constant challenge, I think. And this is where you kind of work with if you have architects on your team, just you start to get creative. Ken touched base on it and ensuring that it is something that's internal to your own instance, I guess, to an extent. And ensuring that, like, hey, whatever you're working with in that particular instance stays within that instance for at least your lower testing. I think from the identity perspective, there's ways to automate in regards to making sure that, Bob is who Bob is when he started running the models and testing it. But yeah, it gets unique. I'm trying to figure out the best way to put it, but let me talk to you after this.
Well, and think about security and compliance, right? Maybe they need the data for testing, but they only need it for a week. So it's trying to control the exposure length of time. Control it as much as you can. I think that's would be my approach to that.
Any other questions for the panelists? Going once, going twice. All right, well, I'll give it a round of applause for all of our speakers. Thank you.
And can we give a big round of applause for Christy? Thank you so much for helping out. Appreciate it. All right, we want to thank you guys very much. So what's happening next is lunch is here. We want to thank Centra for sponsoring lunch, and we want to thank Wiz for sponsoring our network session. We're going to have some punch cards over where the registration table is. So if everyone could make their way at some point, you don't have to all do it at once. We can do it, in groups or however you feel like it. But the punch cards, you go around to all the sponsor tables, they'll punch it, and at the end of the day, they'll be drawing some prizes. So it's good for you to do it. They're ready there. We are going to make our way out. Please spend time with our sponsors. That is the reason for the season. That's why we have a Winter Wonderland here. And spend time with them. Enjoy lunch. Our keynote starts at 1 o'clock. And I will announce and keep you guys informed as we get going. But I want to thank everyone for, gosh, you guys had an amazing panel here. Amazing information. And everyone, please enjoy yourself and go spend some time with our sponsors.
I had you living la vida.